All right, here we are. Back at the Napili with Pete Holmes and Duncan Trussell.
I want to say thank you for thinking of me. I'm so happy to be here. This is fun.
I was thinking
Pete,
about
why
you.
do you look so beautiful?
I don't know,
You
man.
look more beautiful than usual.
Do I?
You always look beautiful, but I don't know. You got some kind of... What's going on with you?
I think this retreat is taking to me much better than the other ones.
I see.
We were already talking off mic about how, and Leah, this is your first one, Leah?
We have an audience
Third
here,
one.
so
There's
everybody
several.
who knows.
Yeah, Raghu, set the stage before
Yeah,
we
so
start.
Oh, wait,
Cam.
Pete's got this weird sexy radiance. To him. What are you putting out, man?
Pheromones.
I'm
I
feeling
like it.
this
It's
retreat.
pheromones.
I'm feeling it.
Well, we're at the retreat back
Yes.
here in Maui with Ramdas Krishnadas, Jack Cornfield.
Maui, I barely know her.
All right. Good night.
Last time we were here.
Can't.
I made that joke
remember
for
what you did
Val.
last
She would
time?
love that joke.
What?
Last time we were here, and we were sitting the three of us together, and you renamed my podcast and took it over, and it was some
What did I name
bullshit New Age thing. It was horrible.
What
Oh,
did
I
I call it? Light of the Waxing Moon with Raghu Marcus?
Something
Yes.
like that. It was just awful.
And I
so-
remember, yes, I remember. It was a different room. Sorry, Raghu.
No. So anyhow, we weren't going to talk about this, but unfortunately, I don't think there's a way we can't talk about this, especially since as part of our audience here, Dr. Rick, he and I were in India not very long ago with a group of people, and in our travels,
Yes.
and we've talked about this particular being that we met in the middle of the jungle. So it so happens, I'm going to say this, so happens that my wife, who knows him quite well, would happen to be on a video chat with him, and Duncan was walking by, so she turned the thing over to him, and he was just telling us that this was the wackiest thing.
Well, no, I think I'll preface it by saying what I've thought when you've talked about this Baba is I just kind of, I don't know, I just thought no.
No, you're not into gurus.
No.
Oh, I get it. We were
Yeah.
talking. I don't mean to interrupt. I have very little to do with this story, but I will relate to your feeling of dead gurus or good gurus because
The best.
That was it.
they become myths,
Yeah.
and then they can't hurt you anymore. Like this guy that you're
They
talking
can't
about.
hurt you anymore.
You know, I'm actually writing about this right now and talking about Christ. And I was like, I used to wish that there were video cameras and reporters and stuff so we could film the crucifixion and the resurrection and the Last Supper and all that stuff. And now my attitude is, what, and ruin it? You know,
Right.
So we could find out that Jesus was a chain smoker and called everyone chief. You know, like it. So what the danger of your living guru is that he could... In our, you know what I'm saying. Like something could happen and it could hurt us.
Yes,
it could damage us.
Absolutely.
But I will tell you this.
Whereas Maharaj-ji is gold. You know what I mean? Like he's already becoming mythologized in a beautiful way that can reach me. I can project onto him as we all do, as opposed to what if I met him? It's like that meeting your hero. As I meet him and his hand's really clammy, and I'm just kind of like, this is who I love.
Or wait,
My
or wait,
hand's
or
like
wait,
crazy.
or wait, or wait, or even worse, Let
I
me-
have clammy hands, by the way. That was not a
your
real
thing.
example.
It's called
See,
projection.
projecting. I told
and
you.
that's what would happen.
I
yeah.
do.
No,
yes.
let me produce for you a worse outcome than you run into Maharaj-ji and whatever. He's smoking cigarettes and he's annoying.
Yeah,
I'll present a worse.
which I would be fine with. I'd like to say
Here's
I'd
what's
still
horrible.
Be okay with
Here's
that.
what's a horrible possibility. You run into him, and it's all real, and now you have to deal with.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah,
being in the presence
You're absolutely
of the
right.
thing they were all talking about.
that's the deeper fear
And
that
now
we
your
film the
ego is
resurrection,
gonna
and
get
he
in-
is.
And your ego gets annihilated. And now you have to deal with the fact that, like, not only does your ego get it, but it's more like, you know, you see those videos of people like getting sucked over a waterfall or something. Like dum-dums will go swimming and like...
I got the wrong search words. I'm watching kittens and stuff.
I can only fall asleep watching people get sucked over a waterfall. But when you're like, you know what I mean? So like the worst possible thing that could happen, the best possible thing,
is the worst possible thing.
the best possible thing is you run into some alleged guru
Alleged.
and you're like,
Take
what?
it to court.
Yeah, you're
Over
like,
the
what-
ledge
You're like, whatever.
in a
This guy,
waterfall.
like these, you know, they're on a bunch of acid. Like these are some hippies from like this is like the peak hippie, man.
Yeah.
They went over to India on the, what's that trail called?
The hippie trail.
They went
The
over to
hippie
India on the
trail.
hippie trail. ran into the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, got blasted on some great Owsley acid or whoever was making that stuff. Sunshine. And then, came into the presence of a charlatan who did some sleight of hand shit and made them all think he was Jesus. That's the best possible outcome, because in that situation, you're going to be able to maintain the integrity of your ego.
It clicks into place in your brain.
Yeah.
We're saying the same thing, because I'm saying metaphorically it's easier for my mind to wrap around. I go, my attitude these days is Christ rose again, or he didn't. It doesn't really matter to me. And that's like a nice way to not deal with it. But you're saying if I go and there he is rising from the grave, that's a huge challenge to me.
Now what?
It's what Krishna Das said to me at this retreat. It changed my life. We were talking about
sometime back.
It was last year.
Last year.
And I was like talking about miracles and stuff. And he was like, you have a shadow on your heart, is what he said. I barely knew him at the time. Really? And he goes, you have a shadow on your heart from when you pretended to believe but didn't. And I was like, shit. And he goes, water into wine is no big deal compared to the things he had seen. I still maintain that it's not exactly the point, which was the Baba that said, I give people what they want, so they'll want what I give. So all the miracles and stuff are just kind of like the neon sign.
So the barker at the carnival.
Exactly. It's the carnival barker.
Let me put it this way. I think one of the worst things that can happen to a person outside of like an IRS audit.
Every time we go to you, you're just going, no, this is what's worse.
Is to see Bigfoot. If you see Bigfoot, you are so fucked.
Yeah, because that dude hasn't paid taxes in a millennia.
You've got to.
You got to write off these.
No, if you see
heads.
If you see Bigfoot, you have two choices. So you and I are out in the woods, and all of a sudden we both see Bigfoot. He wanders into a clearing. It's Bigfoot.
Yeah.
It's the Sasquatch. It's a fucking hominid covered in hair. Mystical butterflies are landing in his fur. He's like in tune with nature. You and I, from now on, we either have to, after he hobbles off, you and me have to look at each other and be like, we will never talk about this day.
Well, yeah.
Or we're going to go on coast to coast for the rest of our lives. Like, I saw Bigfoot. Right. I swear to God, I'm not crazy.
Right.
So
the
it
inconvenience of a miracle.
Yeah. Yes, that's it.
That's what we're calling this podcast.
The
inconvenience of. Well, I was surfing once and a whale. It was very brief, Raghu. I feel bad you haven't said very much. A whale went under us.
How can I get a word in edgewise with the two of you? Forget about
I'm actually trying to alkalize things. No, I'm not. We were on our surfboards and a whale. Val was there. Went under us, and our brains almost immediately deleted the memory. We loved it, but it was too enormous in scope to hold.
That's it.
When I see a whale out, people have been seeing whales jump up and splash. We go, oh, it's a whale like I see in the TV. But when it swims under you and something, you feel the suck of this thing's current and it moves your board and you're like, ah. And it came up and it was barnacled and green. It almost looks like my brain. You ever play a video game and the polygons kind of break apart?
Yeah.
It's like a glitch. It looked like a glitch. It looked like I was looking at a glitch. That's how I remember it. It didn't actually look like a glitch, but as I remember it, I can't fully remember
cool.
it.
None of that happens when you see the Sasquatch.
No glitch?
No glitch.
Have you seen?
You mean your Sasquatch?
Are you saying you've seen a Bigfoot?
Oh yeah.
You've not seen a Bigfoot.
Now we have
that would be a good scoop. I want
a metaphorical Bigfoot.
Your Jungle Bubba is your Sasquatch?
not him, Maharaj-ji.
Maharaj-ji was your first
because
Sasquatch.
on the day-to-day, the Sasquatch.
It's hard to say. Sasquatch.
Suckwatch.
What the hell?
It appeared
The
on a day-to-day being.
I'd much rather see a Suckwatch than a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
But
they're like the erotic beings.
Then you FaceTimed with a Sasquatch, modern Sasquatch.
No, the long and short of it is, so, Raghu has talked about this, and I appreciate your observation. And also, I've seen Saraswati. She seems kind of overcome by this. And a lot of people I respect have run into this person and have been kind of like moved in some way by his energy or whatever. But from my perspective, I don't know, no disrespect, but it's just the kind of thing where I don't know, my brain can't handle it. I don't want to think about it. I don't know what that is. So, but we have to record the data, you have to report on the data, whatever it may be. And I'm fully willing to like admit placebo or whatever. But I will say this, here's the weird synchronicity I was like hanging out in the back of where they do the events here. And someone who just run into him was showing me, oh, he sends he like texts me and stuff. He sends emoji. I was like, oh, whatever.
Jungle Baba uses emojis.
No, to be honest, I was like, I don't want a fucking guru that sends emojis, so whatever. But I was looking at that, and then I'm walking out of this place where I was going to meet a friend to give him something really cool. So I wouldn't have normally been there anyway, but I was like, but then suddenly Saraswati's on the phone with this guy. And then suddenly she's like holding this weird image up on like Skype, and he's looking at me, but I've had a dream about him already, which is weird. But then he's laughing the way he was laughing in the dream, exactly the same way. And he's trying to say my name, but he's mispronouncing it. But then I
think you just buried the lead. I feel like, though, if we can rewrite that story, you go, I had a dream and he was laughing at me. And then on the FaceTime, he laughed. And it was like, I feel like we could stick the landing of the punchline because that's a crazy story.
Re-edit it back.
No, I didn't tell it better. But what I'm saying is what you're saying is incredible.
It's weird.
And I just don't want to gloss over
what I didn't like.
Incredible.
Here's what I didn't like. Here's the report that I don't like. I don't like that I wanted to start crying. I don't like that the hair stood up on my body. I don't like that after that ended, as I was walking away, I felt like I had like gotten really high on something and I couldn't really talk. I don't like the person I was walking with was talking to me and I can't remember what he said. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was like that. I don't like that, and I don't
But I love all of it. I love that.
Me too. I love
that.
watching someone like you. It's like breaking down. It's like the mind. When I say to you, I've seen Sasquatch on a day-to-day basis, right, with Maharaj-ji, because that's exactly what happened every day. Shit happened that you cannot compute. Absolutely, mind could not compute it. So it started. What you're saying is, I don't like the fact that there's something breaking up in there, right? Because it's the concepts and how you see the
power onto one person. I don't like that. I don't like.
Well, there's no power. The power doesn't come into this through a person. Okay, if they are the real thing, they do not have any personal power. Period. Maharaj-ji would say over and over, "I don't do nothing. I do nothing. God does it all." Whatever the God means to, however you want to.
I just think there's something heartbreaking about it, Raghu. I think there's something heartbreaking about it. There's something that and it feels innately heartbreaking about it. I didn't.
What's heartbreaking? You're breaking, and well, it would be a problem. There would be a problem for you, and I do, and you too. You guys, in what you do, on a day-to-day basis, has a certain premise that could get occluded by this potential truth.
I don't think that's it. I don't think it's career based. I'm saying it's heartbreaking on the level of like, oh, the universe is producing beings that are this sweet and they're going to die. That's what I mean, heartbreaking. I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like,
didn't see that coming.
Not at all.
No, that's what I mean. I mean, it's like, I guess these kinds of beings are kind of floating in time just like us, but they're really, really just like giving themselves to the world, and they're incredibly sweet, and they're your friend that you've never met, but they're going to die. So now suddenly you have to deal with the whole thing. Like when you're a kid and you realize your mom's going to die, you know that moment where you're like, wait.
I was 32.
Right. I remember that moment where you're like, fuck, my mom's going to die. Do you remember that moment? It's heartbreaking because you're like, shit, man. Like, really? Like, you die?
But don't you... That's interesting with the Maharajis and the Jungle Babas of the world. And even when I look at Ram Dass, who's, getting older, I'm always like, these are the people that have, those who find the way in the morning will happily leave in the evening. I think it's in the
I've never heard that.
Book of Change. Yeah, I got that from Rami D, but he's quoting. And I'm like, these are the guys that found their way. This is the guy who found his way in the morning. I don't see these guys going, shit, my heart's going to stop beating.
Not them. When you're throwing a party and the coolest person leaves,
Yeah,
party
but,
is like,
but
hey, well
Jesus
done.
said, I'm always with you to the very end of the age. And Maharaj-ji said
Right, that's a sweet thing to say right before you walk out of someone's party.
Yeah, but that's what all these devotees are telling us, is that they're not going anywhere. And that's
But
why
he's right in one sense, because we're not living that.
We're not living what?
We're not living the reality that what's the deepest part of ourselves, whatever you want to call it, soul, spiritual heart, Buddha mind, true nature. I mean, there's so many, we discussed that today. I don't know if you were at the session. But we are not living that. So that fear in us that we are expired, finished, you will not ever be again once we are not living it. So when you meet, like when we met Maharaj-ji, I never thought for a second he was going to die, ever. And then one day I'm sitting I had come back to America, and the phone rings. It's Ram Dass. He says, Raghu, I have to tell you something. My whole body went into a bolt upright. Talk about every hair on my body standing up, because I knew right away. Maharaj-ji left that body at 6 o'clock, whatever, in Vrindavan. And I was so angry. It took me years and years to come out of that. You did that to me. It's the best thing I ever had. It's in the prayers to the Guru. You're my best friend. You're my mother. You're my father. You're my sister. You're my brother. You're my wife. You're my children. You're everything. Everything. And everything went away in that moment. Now, if I had, I was, 27 years old or something. If I was steeped in the reality of karma, reincarnation, soul, all of those things from the East, it would have been like a nothing. And you're right. Meeting that, number one, having that leave is like, how you can't handle it, having that kind of love that's completely unconditional. Leave is an impossible thing, but it also informs our own inability to process the reality of impermanence and death. And that's really what this is all about.
Well, I was wondering if you are projecting. You go, look at this wonderful thing and it's going to die. And isn't that just us saying, look at anything? I don't like thinking that you're going to die.
Impermanence.
Makes me think of my own
Well, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to die.
Nice. You haven't yet. I mean,
No, I mean, like, there is this is where my brain lands in the universe right now. It's just like, there's this kind of poignancy to it. And it's like, it'd be better to have not met something like that, because, like, in a weird way, because it's like, shit, like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that laugh. I don't want to see that I don't want to see that sweetness. It's too sweet. I don't want to see the way he's looking back at these people around him. I don't want to see that.
but isn't that the game? I'm a little surprised.
No, I
by
like
this.
it. But I'm just saying, it's
If
just
he was
like,
here all the time, who cares? We'd just be going like you're telling us we should. I'm excited to maybe meet this man. That's a wonderful thing. And if I had eternity to do it, there'd be no pulse to it. I'd just go, well, I'll see him at some point, because I'm
just
eternal.
telling you,
He's eternal.
that's the way
I'll make it to India. I'll see every corner of the
That's the
globe
way it
because
hits you.
I'm eternal.
I'm just saying that's the way it hit. The way it hit me was.
I don't mean to correct your feeling.
You
by the
can't
way,
correct it. I don't think
your
you're.
feeling is
I'm just
valid.
saying the way it hit me was just like
There's a lot we need to correct about his feelings.
nothing. I'm perfect. I'm
No.
the Baba.
You know what I think it is, Duncan, is your role in my life is you always calm me down. So it's interesting to see you feel.
I don't
There's
need
role
to,
reversal
No,
going on.
number one, I don't need to be.
You've calmed me down 3 times this retreat.
Thank you.
You're
but
you're a rock for
I don't
me.
feel like I would want this to be calm.
If he's a rock for
I
you,
know.
you got
He's a
lot
rolling
of
rock, a
trouble.
bottle of rolling rock.
No, I don't want to be calmed down.
No, I know.
I like that poignant sense. I'm just reporting in on what the feeling was for me, having met him, and then like coming back here in this room and then sitting on the bed for a second to get my shit back together. And then like just the psychonaut in me being like trying to measure up the intoxication, like, cause like the psychonaut in me being like, all right, this is like, definitely feels like a little bit like acid, but it's not acid. Like, what is this? This feels like some kind of like, I'm just trying to compare it to your brain is trying to compare it to a psychedelic you've taken. You're like, well, I don't really know what the psychedelic is. And then there's the unnerving aspect to when I take a psychedelic, I immediately do this like really from doing psychedelics since I was 16. I have a temporal calculation I immediately do with any psychedelic I take. So
What
I'll
is
look
that?
at-
What do you mean?
what I mean is, so for example, let's say I took LSD at like 2:00, I'm gonna know like, oh, okay, I'll be able to go to sleep by 11, right? Like I do calculations, those kinds of calculations, because you know when you're coming down.
Or
I do that
Or
with
I know
coffee.
Thorazine will be good around 2, 3.
That's someone who was like taking the real shit back in the day.
Yeah.
We didn't
You
have.
guys
we
don't
don't
take this.
we're not taking
This is
300.
disco acid.
We're not
you're
taking 300
yeah.
microgram
Yeah,
doses of
right.
like from the Brotherhood.
Right.
But and right now the way we do it is like, oh, I'll probably go to sleep by 10.
Yeah, right.
So when a kind of psychedelic state falls upon you from Skyping with someone, one of the disconcerting elements of it is you have no calculation for when you're going to come down. So that's one of the weird moments is you're like, well, I don't know how long this is gonna last. Does this go on for like
Oh, Jesus.
how many hours does this go on for?
It's called, this is potentially a very dangerous drug. It could be a lifetime dealing with this shit.
And also, you guys can't see Raghu Marcus, but what you wouldn't want to see right now is someone wearing black headphones, fashionable glasses on, who looks like Raghu looking at you going, this could last your whole life.
But when you first called me years ago, so many years ago, when he called me to say, you guys got to be doing podcasts, and that's how this whole, that's why he's Guruji on podcasts. So that moment, you should not have made that call.
What call to you?
Yeah, because that moment was the moment.
That's
Right.
what
When-
Jack Kornfield quoted today. Was like, call upon the gods, but don't be careful because the gods might answer.
Yeah, right,
Right.
And
exactly.
they'll bang
That's
on
it.
your brass until they turn you
That was
Hey,
into
so
gold.
beautiful.
Tell me,
pretty sweet.
you were mentioning something before, so I want to hear a little bit about it because we haven't talked in a long time.
Yeah.
You're doing a book.
Yeah.
Tell me what it's about.
I was doing it last time we did.
Because
it.
this
Boy,
this
books
also
take
could
forever.
change your book, maybe.
I know. It is interesting. But the book is just a time capsule of something that's kind of already happened, which was taking me from losing my faith because my wife left me and then regaining it in new ways. So I'm writing the book to restore. I've met a lot of people that have like gone through very similar experiences. It's actually kind of trippy. A lot of people come up to me and they're like, my wife left me. And then I also had a crisis of faith. And then your podcast helped me. So I was like, oh, I want to just like chronicle that journey because it seems to relieve suffering in people.
Wow.
That sounds very self-righteous. But
No,
I
it
want to
doesn't.
write the book to
Not
restore
at all.
a vocabulary for what I call what is this? Just kind of like a general philosophical, spiritual itchiness. What is going on here? What's it all about? And also relieve that suffering. And there's a certain psychological benefit that I've experienced from reclaiming some of the icons of my youth, like Christ. I love Duncan's hat says, I love Jesus. I told him that when I did his podcast, he was the first person, and I was raised Christian. You're the first person I met that said, I love Jesus in a way that was completely unembarrassed and passionate. And I meant it. It wasn't just like kind of towing a line or belonging to a group. This was a guy who didn't have to, wasn't expected to, in fact, was expected not to, and still loved Christ. And I was like, holy shit, like the door cracking open ever so slightly back to those icons and those images and those metaphors feels really, really good. So even though my spirituality is constantly fluctuating and being changed by things like that, I want to tell the story of losing it and then seeing the beauty of losing it and then rebuilding it. And the third part is through this stuff, through Ram Dass and through that story I told you off mic about Krishna Das. Or was that on mic? I don't remember.
Yeah. So talk about Christ. What is your renewed connection like?
Yeah. I love to, the last time, sometimes I take psychedelics and I remember Christ. And for some reason that word, for whatever it is, really means something to me. It makes me laugh and smile and fill up. Jack Kornfield was telling that story about the guy who got into all this stuff and the Buddhism and the Krishna and the malas and all that stuff, but as he was dying, wanted Jesus on his table. And I was like, oh, that's me. The ones that get in at the beginning have a psychological tie, but also it's just kind of like your first taste of it, and it's special. It's like your first kiss or something. So now I look at Jesus as sometimes speaking as Jesus. This is basic stuff for you guys, I'm sure. And sometimes speaking as the Christ, which is when the Big Bang happened, that was the beginning of this awareness, and that was the beginning of Christ. And when he says, I am the vine and you are the branches, I always used to take that as like, he's the commander in chief and we're his foot soldiers. And now I'm like, no, he's saying we're all one thing. The Christ is the vine and we're the branches. Like God is a tree, like the trunk, and we forget, and we're being all branchy, and I'm growing a berry over here, and that one's over there being evil and dry and kind of fucking birds up. But like we're all part of this one thing. So it was very fun for me to take, and Ram Dass does this, take these Hindu ideas and Buddhist ideas and kind of bring them into a very welcoming place. So that's who Christ is to me. I used to pray the sinner's prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, because I felt guilty because I had been masturbating or something. So I was like, I'm sorry, please don't kick me in the furnace. And now I pray that same prayer, and it's very moving to me. And I'd say, have mercy on me, I'm a sinner. It's like, have mercy on me, I'm separate. Have mercy on me, I forgot.
That's beautiful.
I forgot the tune. I've lost my flow. And when you get back into it, and sin and all those things, this is all in the book. Sin are those things that are impeding that connection. The song coming through the airwaves, and you're the radio, and your antenna's just a little crackly. It's not the thing that makes elephants stampede and dust kick up and washing themselves in water, the Himalayas and all these things, isn't mad at you. It's waiting for you. You know, it's a paradigm shift. Pleasing it because it could squash you, or like trying to let it flow through you is such a wonderful gift.
Well, you know, I know we've discussed this before, especially with you, around when we went to India, we were introduced to Christ. You know, I mean, me and Ram Dass and a couple of other people that you know, Krishna Das, you know, grew up Jewish, as Krishna Das said, on his mother's side. And we had no concept. I mean, the first thing, sitting there with Maharaj-ji, he went, where's your cross? The first day.
Wow.
And I'm going, cross? Like, I'm Jewish.
Right.
And then Hanuman and Christ are one.
Yeah.
Right? Over and over and over and over. Did you read his book? What book? The New Testament? So we started reading that. So we became completely immersed in this.
Isn't it funny? I say Ram Dass did it, but really Ram Dass was doing it because Maharaj-ji had done it. This is a new shift for me as I keep going. Ram Dass feels like my guru, and people keep going, well, he's channeling Maharaj-ji. So you're really just kind of saying your pot dealer is your connection, when really the drug is
which
the
is
thing
what, you know,
you.
my first minute when I met Maharaj-ji, I only knew Ram Dass. I loved him and I trusted. This whole retreat is around trust, which I want to get into this thing a little bit. Yeah. And I got there, and Maharaj-ji, I went, holy shit, that's what Ram Dass was all about.
I love that.
It just was a flow through.
Well, that would have been blasphemy to me, to say Hanuman and Christ are one. And now I have complete peace with that. And KD actually took it further and was like, when he did my podcast.
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the statement.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God, help me.
Can I finish my point? Because you might disagree with this. It'll give you more to disagree with, which will be fun. KD said he thought Maharaj-ji was a reincarnation of Jesus. And he was like,
Jesus?
He was like,
Jesus.
He was like, I shouldn't even be saying this. Yeah. He said it on my podcast. Check it out.
So
he was saying it was the same energy come back.
Energy, right. Well, what are we talking? That's why, you know.
First of all,
if
the idea is Hanuman and Jesus are one.
Fun.
If the idea is Hanuman and Jesus are one, let's look at the actual mythology. Because I'll tell you what I love about.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about Hanuman first. Hanuman, little super divine monkey, doesn't know his own powers, tries to eat the sun. It's beautiful. It's great. I wasn't raised in India.
Careful, Jesus! I don't want you to get hurt saying things that are so
so now
weird.
it's voodoo. Now it's
Yeah,
superstition.
right.
Huh?
Yeah.
Is Hanuman going to get me, Raghu? Is that it? Like Hanuman's
right
gonna
over
get
the
me
head
next?
with that mace. It's coming.
There are so many Hanumans in this room. There's one. There's one right here.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's be specific here. If we're going to get into trying to create some comparative mythology here, so that we don't end up diluting one or the other in some weird attempt to fuse the East with the West. That's all. And it's there's something quite beautiful about Hanuman, and I won't pretend to understand it because I wasn't raised in India, but there's something incredibly beautiful to me about Jesus, and it's not a contest or anything. But one of the things I love about the story of Jesus versus Hanuman is that Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, prior to the crucifixion, when he said, "Take this cup away from me," is an example, and as far as I'm aware, the only example of a Messiah being trying to get the fuck out of his job. And to me, there is something so innately...
Maybe I don't tell the story. I don't know what you...
He's saying, don't make me do this.
And so,
there's a moment of doubt.
In the Garden of Gethsemane, Christ and the disciples have gotten hammered. They're all drunk on wine. They've all fallen asleep. So his friends who know he's going to, he's been saying, I'm going to die. I'm about to die. His friends have completely abandoned him. They've all passed out. Whatever. It's no big deal. My friends would do the same thing, I'm sure. But that doesn't make you feel that much better. And so he goes wandering away from his friends who've all fallen asleep, knowing he's about to die. He's completely alone. He's in the garden. He says this prayer. If there's any way for you to take this cup away from me, please don't. I don't want to drink from this cup. I don't want to die. I want to hang out with my friends. I like it here. I don't want to die. And I think there is something so intensely and innately human about that versus any other mythological archetypical figure, that to compare that being with any Zeus, Hanuman, whoever it is not fair. It's not a fair comparison because from an existential perspective, I cannot think of another more accurate representation of the predicament of what it is to be a human, but knowing you're going to die.
Couldn't you say, because I agree with you, I don't want Snow White to be Cinderella. We need those two separate stories.
Yeah.
And those two separate things, beings. But I mean, if you reduce them down 100,000 times just to their essence, couldn't you just be very similar?
I think if you reduce anything 100,000 times to its essence, you get a bunch of goo.
No, you don't have to go that far. I mean, the reality of a being that Christ, unconditional love, service, complete abandonment of self,
and trying to get out of his job, and
well, first of all, that's a reportage by who? One of the Gospels?
All the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all the synoptic Gospels. I don't know the book of John, but I know it's in every single synoptic. It's in the synoptic Gospels.
Okay, well,
and also, let us not forget, one of his final words on the cross was, "Father, why have you forsaken me?" Right. So we're looking at a tortured being who, upon the moment of annihilation, prior to the last thing he said, which is, "Into your hands I commend my spirit, it is finished." Right before that, we were looking at the great dark night of the soul. We're looking at the being that is supposed to be a representation of the most divine thing, saying to the universe, "Where the fuck are you, man? What the fuck happened? This is not going the way it was supposed to go." You don't say, "Why have you forsaken me?" as a joking thing. If you don't come to the table where I'm "Where's Raghu?" If you're late to a meeting, I'm "Why is Raghu forsaken me?" When you say, "Why have you forsaken me?" you mean I've been abandoned by you. I've been betrayed by you. I've been abandoned and betrayed by you, the thing that I thought I could... I
think this is just a bunch of... this is the Christian church kind of stuff.
Where does Jesus come from? It's in Christianity, Raghu. This is what's beautiful about this.
Jesus is Jewish, and he had a little bit of that thing going on.
No.
It's why do I have to do this?
What am I doing?
You're right. Unconditional positive regard, unconditional love, pure forgiveness for humanity. But the one thing, the spice that you're leaving out, a very specific spice.
He acted in that way, in my mind, I mean, I don't know anything. In my mind, though, he acted in that way so as to bring all of these souls into a certain place, like you are doing right now, of I can identify with that.
Yeah.
He did that for...
Don't you feel like if Ram Dass were here, he would go, Christ was afraid, but he did it anyway. Because that's how
Yes.
much he loved God.
That's what I think.
And that's
Exactly.
the Hanuman.
But the way you're saying
but if
it
he
is,
said it, would all be like,
but the way you're saying it, is he was putting on a show.
take a 20-minute break.
The way you're
Not putting on a show, but he was acting in a way that he needed to be that actor in that moment.
A different story.
No, that's a different story. I will tell you.
No, I'm saying he was acting in a different
He
story.
was.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
We
I
need
think
to
he
bring
was,
this up tomorrow.
I think
when we
he
do
was.
this thing with Ram
I think
Dass.
he was horrified. I think
You
he
think
was,
he was actually had fear?
If he didn't, then I don't give a fuck about Jesus.
You know what?
He was horrified.
He's a very tough guy here in terms of his gurus.
He was horrified.
That's why he doesn't want to meet the real
Ra-
thing
Raghu-
because he could be destroyed.
No, I just think that like you want Jesus to be Santa Claus at a mall, and I'm telling you that where he's putting on a show. Oh, I'm going to pretend to be freaked out to help people. No, this was a living
interesting.
force of divine love that was as terrified as a little baby sheep about to get its throat cut in a slaughterhouse.
Christ.
That's what it was. It
Well
was
put.
terrified. It was his Father, why have you forsaken me? It was the mewling baw of any innocent creature about to be slaughtered. It was the shriek of the dying
Now
innocent.
I'm really happy that I'm Jewish. Okay,
That's
that
no,
I
but
never
to-
had to
You know,
deal
it's funny.
with that.
I mean, you're hitting on something that is unique about the Christ story.
Yeah.
This is
Just-
some podcast. I don't know what this. I guess we don't have many fundamentalist listeners, but I think
I'm just saying, don't take the passion out of my Christ, man. Like
Okay.
you want to make it some kind of
Right.
show. It wasn't.
Well,
He was
Martin
dying.
Scorsese
He was
here,
freaked
you know?
out. He was dying. He was freaked
There's
out.
no way in the
But that-
world that I would ever believe that. Okay?
That's
Not
also-
that I have a big time relationship with.
You know, I'm not even trying to take away, because you're really having fun with the story. You know, it's giving you a lot of meaning, and I think that's completely valid. But I do think this is where the metaphor thing comes into play, where I don't know if we know exactly what was going on with Jesus or Hanuman. And that's, Richard Rohr says, metaphor is the only language we have to
Yeah,
speak
sure.
of God. So this story is true. You're reporting it accurately. That is the tale as it's been told, and I think
Yeah.
that's valuable. I think there's still room for it being like, well, it's so much bigger than that. You know, it's
personal experience. Okay,
Yeah.
so Neem Karoli Baba.
not NKB.
So somebody comes one day and it says so and so is dying. We know you have the power, and he just tosses it off. What am I to do? It's death is death, life is bang. I'm not saying this. I mean, I'm not giving you the details of that particular. But the main point is that he tossed it off.
Well, that was similar when someone told him Anandamai Ma died, and he was like, "We're all dying." Like
Yeah.
he didn't mourn it. He was just
No.
going, "What are you going to do?"
Next person, then another time, somebody comes and says so and so is passing, whatever. He's like crying and crying and crying. Why? We could never understand something like that. Never. I mean, my day-to-day with him was there was nobody home. There was nobody in duality that would react like that. So
Right.
it's a mystery, and this thing with Christ to me is part of that mystery.
Okay, well, let me throw something out here, and this is I just thought of it.
I want for the record, I didn't make it all Jesus-y.
I love it.
This wasn't me.
It's fine. I think it's a perfect entree into what we're talking about. But let's
Yeah.
just imagine this. Let's imagine you had to watch Neem Karoli Baba get beaten and nailed to a crucifix, and on the crucifix wail out into infinity, "Why have you forsaken me? Ram, why have you forsaken me?" And if you can think about that pain, now you'll understand Christianity, which is why when you run into a real Christian, and there's a great picture in National Geographic where they were like, they had to like do something in the tomb of Christ, where they had to open up the tomb of like where he like was buried and rose again. That's like a sacred spot in Israel.
There's a couple of them.
But this, there's a lot of them. But there's a video they had to like redo it for some reason or whatever, and so all the monks and the people who like take care of it got to stand around when they unearthed the sarcophagus or the part underneath all the other stuff. And if you look at their face, what you see is the face of someone whose brother just died in a car accident. The grief on their face is transcendent. And to really understand Christianity, which is really the Christian year, is based on the story of Jesus, starting with his birth, ending with his crucifixion, then his resurrection. The whole cycle of a Christian's year is based on the rhythm of this being's life. And so if you run into someone who's like really in that path, they're brokenhearted. They're brokenhearted for like at least a few months in the year, and then they're not brokenhearted anymore because there's a resurrection. But to get to the resurrection, you have to get through the broken heart. And to remove the broken heart from the equation by imagining the being is like, okay, I'm putting on a show, is to completely cut the legs off the thing.
I get you. I mean, it's a.
I like the Ram Dass. In Be Here Now, it talks about Christ being nailed to the cross and looking at the centurion with compassion. Like, look at this game we're all playing. I'm the guy you're crucifying.
It's not the story, though. That's a made-up story. The real story is the being is on the cross. He says, I'm thirsty. They shove vinegar in his mouth, which could have been opium. There's some hope there. He's fucking...
We'll talk about made-up stories.
Well, if you get into Christian theology, there's debate because you look at the translation of the word.
But Jesus looking at them with compassion is subtext. Him saying, I'm thirsty, and them giving him vinegar doesn't exclude the possibility. Ram Dass is saying, having been in the presence of these open,
potentially,
vacant beings.
He could be. He did say, "What Father, forgive them; they don't know what they're doing," which to me is one of the great disses of humanity, because I think what he's saying to them is they don't know I'm Jesus. I think he's saying they don't know what they're doing. Like when you see your friend who's like in a blackout and he's pushing shit off the counter and he's like, pissing in the garden.
Yeah.
He literally doesn't know what he's doing. He's just some dark, subconscious, habitual force. I think Jesus' prognosis for humanity was it's a Gurdjieff level spiritual machine. There's no autonomy there. They're absolutely like just locked into some habitual mechanism. So forgive them because they're literally just fucking broke down machines or something.
Okay, you're really living on a relative plane, though. You who are so free a being.
I know. I think you're taking my place. That's why I
really.
said I'm not bringing this up.
I think you've completely usurped.
I feel like I'm being the Duncan by saying metaphor is the only language for this. So there's something greater than the story. And the story is wonderful to dissect and to talk about what was the intention of the character and how were they feeling and all that stuff. And I believe that, but kind of to drive that home, even though I know you know what I mean already, that what we're really after can't be organized or spoken about.
Yeah.
There's a gospel where Jesus doesn't come back. In Mark, he's crucified and doesn't resurrect. And that, to me, isn't an error. It's a clue that we're thinking about it wrong. It wasn't, was he mad or was he afraid like a sheep?
The real thing...
We're trying to get through the words, the space between.
Exactly. You got to get to there's absolutely no way to think.
And I know you know that. I wasn't explaining that to you.
No, I'm just saying. All I'm saying is don't pull the I think that if
you don't want to mash everything into.
I'm saying don't make a PG version of what really happened, which is in the myth. I'm saying it didn't really happen. Like it's all a bunch of bullshit created by the Illuminati to control slaves. He's back! He's back, baby! But
I feel like I just woke you up.
But let's No, I'm just saying, but let's imagine in that story. Let's just not try to let's not try to groom it into some Disney character. Let's accept it for what it was, which is a broken man who believed.
Accept it for what it was.
A broken man who believed in something, being proven completely wrong, screaming to the sky, "Why have you forsaken me?"
Jesus,
and then in a desperate, it's not blasphemy. No, it's Christianity.
Another word for Christianity.
And in a desperate last attempt, calling out ultimate surrender. I think you have forsaken me, and yet still, in this sense of forsakenness, I give my life to you. And that, I think, is the ultimate metaphor for enlightenment. And I can't think of a more beautiful metaphor for it, because any enlightened being that I've run into, who gets enlightened in some happy day? Oh, walking through the park, everything's going great. You look at the sky, oh, I'm having the best day of my life. Oh, what? Oh, fuck, I just got enlightened.
Right.
No, it comes from being broken down.
Somebody at this retreat told me a story about a 10-day, it's very brief, silent retreat, and he had to sit still, very similar to Ram Dass's story where they'd hit you if you moved. Yeah. And 10 days of that. But the guys that he was in the room with snored, so he couldn't sleep. So he was meditating all day, every day, can't sleep at night, losing his mind, left a meditation because the guy next to him fell asleep sitting up and was snoring as well. Went to his quarters to try and sleep for half an hour while no one was in the room. The guy comes back and gets the guy, brings him back, goes, you have to keep meditating. And he meditated, was miserable, was having a hard time. And that's what snapped him. He said he couldn't stop crying and laughing. It sounds like a mental break, but it also sounds like a spiritual breakthrough.
Yeah.
Where he went into the woods and felt he was on the unified field. He was just like there because he couldn't. And I was like, you're talking to me? Like, I brought a white noise machine on this trip. I got earplugs. I was like, it's very important that you're talking to me right now because I'm the guy that wants that level of control. And Ram Dass is a similar story where he was getting miserable because he's an achiever like me, and they're asking him koans and they want him to give the correct answer. How do you see Buddha nature in the sound of a cricket? And Ram Dass, being the good Harvard boy that he is, would be like, well, you know, everything's everything, and the sound of the cricket is me and you talking, and be like, get out of here. And only when he broke and spent all day while he was meditating trying to think of a familial emergency that would help him save face and get him out of there.
That's it.
Did he go into the... and he goes, how do you know you're Buddha nature? And he goes, who knows, man? I don't know. How are you? And he was like, you're finally learning.
I'm going to call this the Gospel of Sri Duncan.
No. It's not really. What I'm saying is actually not that far apart from any other like basic Christian theology. But like if we look at Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and you look at like Viktor Frankl talking about being marched to do work, he's seen his entire family murdered in Auschwitz, and in this moment of like in the icy cold, knowing he could die, suddenly feeling true love, like when everything's stripped away, in that place there's
if you
love.
Want resurrection, you have to have crucifixion.
Not the story a lot of us, me included, would like, which is going to come to us in a fucking hot tub. Because it isn't. It's what's going to happen to every single one of us in this room and every single one of us listening. Sorry, you guys, to break this to you. Is everyone you know is going to die. You're going to be sitting next to your mother, looking at her face, and this isn't the person that you grew up with. It's a person who you're going to look at her urine being collected in some jug next to her bed, and she won't be able to talk. And you're going to look at her. And you're gonna realize like, oh my God, this is what life is.
Why have you forsaken me?
Yeah, and then what's gonna happen is you're gonna hold your mother's hand right after she died, and you're gonna feel love, and you're gonna feel love springing out of that moment, and you're gonna realize, oh my God, here in the room, I'm holding my mom's dead hand, there is more love than I've ever felt in my life. And that's reality. But you don't get there from sitting in a fucking hot tub, man. And forgive me, man. I'm just saying, like, we must admit.
Where did I get the hot tub?
Well, you're Mr. Hot Tub. I don't know. That's the word around the campus. You're a big hot tub.
You're turning.
You know what?
You're turning Jesus into an actor. He wasn't. It's humanity dying at the hands of like time.
You know, I haven't the slightest idea. Except you're right. I am the guy in the hot tub. I am. Because, and it's mostly, you know, I met Ram Dass, went to India. There was Maharaj-ji. I was 24 years old. And there was the big hot tub.
But I was just going to say, isn't it also in the hot tub? And I sound like you. I feel like I'm channeling you. While that story is so true for so many, it's also a guy on a tucket and a blanket rolling around like a baby because you're singing to him. And all these people that we know and love found
absolutely
a Christ-like experience in that.
Sure.
Yeah, and we didn't do anything.
Exactly.
Sure.
There was nothing. I mean, and we've all had suffering because life is suffering.
It's a continuum, no doubt.
But
let's just not pluck away the one part of the continuum so that we can all enjoy one
Jesus,
part.
All right. Well, let me turn this around, because before we end, I want to get at this because we're talking about it.
have we been recording?
Oh, so sorry.
Also, may I just
Didn't
say
know
this
that.
very quickly?
Yeah.
I am an atheist.
Oh,
That's so funny. You are so fun. Wow.
this is the guy that had this extraordinary dream of somebody
know.
from a jungle, like 8,000 miles away, and on the phone he realizes, oh shit, it's the same guy.
Right.
Why are they even
Whatever.
caring and
I don't
dealing
believe
with
that
you?
shit.
I don't know.
Are you an atheist?
100%. Do I sound like
All
I
right,
believe
good.
this shit?
No.
You're straight clowning?
I don't believe any of this. Read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins,
You're-
and then let's do a podcast.
All right, before you really go
clowning.
off that,
He's a rascal.
yeah, I don't believe anything he says at any moment except his dreams. I believe. So,
Thank you.
You're just the
Trust.
hamster we let in the chocolate
Trust.
shop.
Thank you.
You just eat stuff and poop everywhere, and we're like, oh my God, Duncan was here.
All right, all right, okay. You're an atheist. Okay, tell me what you trust in. Both of you, I need to hear about trust, since this whole retreat's around trust.
I trust you. I trust you.
Are you lying?
Nope.
You are so esoteric.
I'm not. I trust you. You're my teacher. You're my. I trust you. I trust you.
I can't trust that whatever you're
I
saying
did. Okay,
is
I
true.
made a
though.
dumb. Made a dumb joke about being I'm obviously not an atheist. I trust you, Raghu. I feel very lucky to know you. You brought me into this incredible lineage, and because of you, I'm not as freaked out as I used to be. So I trust you.
Really? I feel like Larry David come up with.
See, that's the feeling. Gerbil in the chocolate.
No, I do. I trust you.
Well, I mean, now I feel like I have this gigantic responsibility. I don't know what.
Just keep doing your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're doing a great job. Are you
Really?
doing a perfect job? Maybe
No,
not, but you're
no.
doing a great job. You're doing a great job. And for all of us, you've done a really great work that you don't get the credit that you deserve. And you do
All
a
right.
really cool.
Nobody wants to hear this.
Okay, well, no, they do. And I think that you get left out. And I think it's.
Really?
I do. I think you get left out. Because like you're
How did I get left
because you're
out?
in an administrative position here. And like what ends up happening from like running into you, like you said, you sent me this email and you contact me like, oh, you should. We start talking about doing podcasts or whatever, and the whole time you're like, oh, my podcast guru or whatever, the sweet thing you say. But in reality, what's happening is whenever I'm really bummed, you accidentally call me. Whenever like shit's going bad for me, you contact me. You let me come to these things. You give me so much. I trust you. So, and not just you, of course, but like this beautiful thing that you've given me. So I trust you.
Well, okay, I'll accept that.
Thank you.
Seemingly to me, it's no different than when I met Ram Dass, and I trusted him.
Right.
Period. You missed the session we did this. You weren't in it either, right?
I went to Jack this morning.
Then how could you not come to the?
I can't do the 2 lectures in a row thing.
Nobody
man.
does that
Why?
anymore. These
I need a
retreats.
break.
Nobody does that anymore.
You know what I should
Jesus
do?
Christ! So don't go to Jack.
Yeah,
okay?
I should swap it up.
Yeah. Anyhow,
You're absolutely right.
We did chat about trust quite a bit with Krishnadas and Ram Dass, right? There were some great things in there. Good thing we
I believe
filmed
it.
this stuff so you
I
can watch
immediately
it
regret missing
again. But I did talk about meeting Ram Dass and just the way that he absolutely engaged me like nobody else had done in my life. Maybe my mother, when I was a baby, who complete unconditional love for a
An
moment.
over-loving Jewish mother?
Wait, what?
The way that he absolutely blocked, there was nothing but him and me in that moment. And I had heard one talk, right, that they had sent me to the radio station, and I absolutely trusted him because he left everything that was just the moment, be here now, personified. So, from there, I got the realization of where that real trust was. And Ram Dass says trust and faith are synonymous. Although we had a whole talk about that where I said, I don't believe they're synonymous. So anyhow, that was a whole other thing. But to me, that opening thing in anybody's life is some kind of trust in something, or somebody says something, or a book, or whatever it might be. What do you think about trust? Because I haven't talked.
It's funny because I listened to those records, the Love, Serve, Remember records at the radio station. Is that what you were there for?
No, those came after.
Oh, okay.
A few years after.
Because when I put those on, I'm reminded of why I trust Ram Dass and what he's about. Because they're so slow. Like there's so many like pauses, and it's it's such a cliche to say, but it's those pauses where I'm like, oh, something's coming through here. This guy's not rushed like me. Like I rush, I get emphatic and passionate and stuff, and I was like, this guy's on the radio and he doesn't give a shit, and I love it. And taking calls and like kind of easily answering weird 70s questions.
Like what? Do you remember any of them?
I mean, they're weird.
I know, man.
I
can't
don't
recall one.
remember.
Right? There's just like people on like 15 hits of acid. Or
Yeah.
like Ram Dass. I was in the middle of
I couldn't believe everybody knew everything. Everyone was like, I love kirtan. I was like, how do these Americans know what kirtan is?
Yeah.
I found it, everybody seemed to find it later. But I trust that there's something going on, and the arc of it being loving and redemptive in the wide scope of things. And I think it was Dante that said God is the love that hung the stars. And the way that I interpret that is the thing that's keeping us all from being a swirl of miscellaneous molecules. That's keeping Raghu and Duncan. Obviously there's a unifying principle that I trust and love and feel. And I trust that very much. And I trust my piece of that, which is my heart. And as I married Val, I've learned to feel that flow where you start receiving these graceful little things where you're like, oh, I didn't deserve this. Or even everything. Not Val and being here and being able to create stuff and share it with people and have it reach people.
Okay, we're going to end on that note because you and I are so in tune with what trust means to me.
Yeah.
Once you start to have that trust, and for all of this, and you have the word that jumps from trust to share. That's all there is for me. I was kidding you earlier maybe we weren't talking it wasn't part of the podcast, but I wanted to grab you by the neck.
Yes.
And take you
And share.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. Hey, can I present very quickly?
God,
I know we're wrapping it up. Can I very quickly say
the gerbils and the chocolate.
Guys,
I was trying to get out of this.
Guys, please,
alive.
now that you're probably thoroughly nauseated by listening to these two hippies yap, listen to my new podcast, The God Delusion, Talking Dawkins. It's a podcast dedicated.
Talking Dawkins.
Yeah, it's all just talking about Richard Dawkins, and just check it out and learn the truth and learn what's real, which is you're gonna die, and that's it.
See, I see.
What?
Die.
It's on Monsanto.com.
Life
It's the
sucks
new,
and then
it's
you
the
die.
new Monsanto
It's the new
podcast
thing.
network. Talking Dawkins. You'll love it. Don't believe these guys.
On the Duncan Trussell family.
Duncan Trussell family.
and
Changed my
everybody.
life.
Pete, are you doing podcasts?
Yes, you made it weird.
You made it weird going because you did the HBO show, which you
I never missed a week.
You never missed a week.
Never
It
missed
was
a week.
incredible.
Yeah. I actually think I'm getting to the point where I need to, if we get to do a third season, I'm going to potentially slow it down, maybe do one a month, just because I'm telling all these people to live good lives and spacious lives and love themselves. And then I'm like, why am I not taking a day off while
Hold on. I don't know how you do that, Holmes.
I'm working 18-hour days and then on the weekends
That's
I'm
insane.
chatting with people.
I do
insane.
I do one podcast a week, and I feel put out.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're producing a show for HBO and doing a podcast, that's
it's a bit much.
wild.
I think we would just scale it to one a month because I can backlog them.
Yeah, they can do.
And then
But just before we go, just a little brief on the HBO show.
yes, it comes back January 14th. Boy, I hope people like it. There's not
And
tons
we'll
of
talk
this
about
stuff.
what it is. I mean,
It's called
give us-
Crashing.
Crashing, right.
It's going to be on Sunday nights at 10:30 on HBO, and then it'll be on HBO Go and all that stuff. But it's what I said earlier. My wife left me in real life, and it's a show about a guy whose wife leaves him, and then like all this stuff, you find what is it? first comes the fall, then comes the recovery of the fall. Both are the mercy of God. That's kind of the story of crashing in a way. I would never say that in normal press. And when I do say things like that, when Judd Apatow is the producer, he kicks me under the table.
Oh, really?
He's always like, stop saying things like that. Not because he doesn't agree with me, but because he just wants me to be funny and kind of sell the show in a
exactly.
effective way.
Yeah.
But it's about the worst thing that can happen to somebody becoming the best thing that could happen to somebody.
Which is great.
As I do that show, more and more people still come up and go like, that's right. I mean, there's a catalyzing moment that projects me where I need to go.
Okay, so this is Mindrolling. I'm Raghu with Duncan,
the gerbil,
Pete, and here we are looking out at the ocean in Maui. Lucky dogs that we are, and we shall continue on the Be Here Now Network. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com, and we'll give you links to what Duncan's doing and what Pete's doing. When's the book coming out, Pete?
Well, my deadline's December 15th, so I don't know. I guess I probably have another couple months after that.
Okay. Well, we'll
And
let you know
guys,
about that.
do check out Monsanto.com. There's a lot of misconceptions about this. Hold on, I'm sorry. It's a farmer-friendly company, and we're doing a lot of great work for the world. So please check us. Give us a chance.
I'm
I know
worse
we have
than him. I just went to somebody came with some gluten-free cookies for lunch, and I went up to the person who handles the kitchen, Verna, and I said, Verna, really, I love gluten. Can you?
Well, this is why you need to try. Guys, go to Monsanto.com. Check out some of our genetically modified gluten.
I said, I like GMOs too. And she looked at me like, are you crazy? You came with All right, this is the end of it.
I'm glad you
We're not
appreciate them.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.